अरे यार, मैथ्स की स्किल डेवलप करने के लिए कोर्स कहाँ से करूँ?
अरे बे, तुझे इतना ही नहीं पता? अपना कोर्सेरा है आजकल, ऑनलाइन डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म। यहाँ से बहुत सारे कोर्स कर सकता है। हाय फ्रेंड्स, आई एम धर्मेंद्र सोलंकी एंड आप देख रहे हैं हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल टेक्निकल फन एंड फैक्ट। तो दोस्तों, अगर आप हमारे चैनल पर नए हैं तो हमारे हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए एंड बेल आइकन को जरूर दबाइए, ताकि जब भी हमारे कोर्स में जो वीडियो हम नए अपलोड करें वो आपका नोटिफिकेशन आपके पास आ जाए।
सो फ्रेंड्स, बने रहे वीडियो के एंड तक।
और अब वीडियो को स्टार्ट करते हैं। सो दोस्तों, जो कोर्सेरा साइट है इसका इंटरफेस कुछ ऐसा है। ये सारी रजिस्ट्रेशन की प्रक्रिया मैं लास्ट में बता दूंगा आपको। तो आप देख सकते हैं चैनल को। अब हम स्टार्ट करते हैं कोर्स को।
सो फ्रेंड्स, मैं बताना चाहता हूँ, आप अगर हमारे चैनल पे नए हैं तो प्लीज हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें और साइड में दिखाए गए बेल के आइकन को प्रेस करें। थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग इन दिस वीडियो।
Know we have a lot in common. We're both lifelong learners. I'm your instructor for this project. If you're taking this project, I know we have a lot in common. We're both lifelong learners. I've been teaching for over a decade, and I've never stopped learning. I have a bachelor's in elementary education, master's in educational leadership, and special education specialist certification. I'm constantly looking for ways to grow, which I'm sure you are too, as is evidenced by you taking this project. Throughout each task, we're going to work together to set up our iKnowit account and learn how to use different features so that you are ready to use this with your students. Now, iKnowit is a math practice website geared for K-5 that allows students to get targeted practice selected by their teacher in different math skills. It allows the teacher to track their progress and to really get a thorough understanding of where students are at and which skills to focus on. During each task, we will work on learning the key features, creating our class and adding students, creating assignments. We'll also look at iKnowit from a student perspective, and we'll track student progress using iKnowit, using that data that we add in as our sample student. So before we get started, we're going to need to sign up for our account. If you've already done that, you can just press login and you'll be able to log in that way. If you haven't, you'll need to press free sign up. So I'm going to go through the free sign up process. Again, for those of you that have already signed up, go ahead and just press login and you can fast forward through this part of the video where we sign up together. So let's click on that. Okay, you notice teachers do get a 30-day free trial. So if you find this is something you really want to use with your students, which I have found and I enjoy using it with mine, then you will need to upgrade your account to a paid account. And if you're interested in more details, there's a whole pricing tab up here, so you can look at that. There's also the school or district sign up options, right? So if your whole school is on board, again, there's different pricing options for that. But for now, let's go ahead and click the teacher sign up 30-day trial. Okay. So what I appreciate here is that we don't have to put in credit card information, right? So you don't have to worry about canceling this later if you're worried about your credit card information just getting automatically used and charged. So for now, let's go ahead and enter in all of your information. And when you are ready, press join for free. So go ahead and pause your video, add your information, and hit play when you're ready. All right, so I am now on the page after I've signed up for my account. And you'll notice right at the top, I have this renew button. So if when you complete this project, you want to right away sign up for a full account, you can press renew and enter in all your details there. Otherwise, you can test this out with your students for the first month and just see how they find it, see how you're using it before you determine whether or not you want to commit. Now, let's just take a look at some of these different tabs, which we'll go into in more details later on in the course, but I just want to get a feel for them with you for a moment. So you'll notice right up here we have different grades. All we have to do is click on each grade, and it's going to give you some different activities for each one. Okay? Now it also talks about a class code here. So you could use this feature later on in the all we have to do is click on each grade, and it's going to give you some different activities for each one. Okay? Now it also talks about a class code here. So you could use this feature with your class, and it makes it simpler for students to log in. You just need to make sure you give this code to students, especially if they're logging in from home. So let's go ahead and create our class code for a moment. Think of anything that is memorable for your class or memorable for your school community. I'm just going to make mine. There you go. So that's going to be mine. Again, make your own code that is unique to your class and your needs, and then press save. Okay? So again, your students are going to need that code when they sign in. So we'll take a look at that a bit more later. For now, let's just press OK. All right, so you notice, once I clicked on a grade, it gives me all kinds of different headings for each math skill that we're looking at, and underneath, all of the different topics that they can practice. And as you hover over each one, it even gives you an example of what students will see. So I find this really helpful. So I know what my students are practicing, but also how they're practicing that skill. Okay, so let's scroll back up here. Now, if you go to your account tab, you're going to get, of course, your account details. Anytime you need to change, upgrade, make any revisions to your account, you're going to need to go here. Your Students tab we'll go into a bit later when we're adding our class. Assignments we'll take a look at as well in a later task. This is just where we create and add assignments for our students so that we can focus them on skills that they need to practice. And then finally, we also have our Progress tab. Once we test it out as a student, we'll be able to look at that and see how a student is doing using the Progress tab. All right, so that's a quick overview. There you are. Quick overview of iKnowit, just the basic features. Again, we'll go into these in a lot more detail as we go throughout this project. Okay, well done on getting your account all set up and exploring iKnowit. If you'd like to pause the video and do a little more exploration on your own, by all means, go right ahead. But as we go throughout, we will explore and practice each of these different features together so that you're ready to use it with your students. So in our next task, we're going to create our class and add students. So I look forward to seeing you in that task. Welcome back. Now that we have explored iKnowit and you have your account all set up, let's go ahead into our My Students tab. During this project, we're going to focus in on this tab, creating our class and adding students. So let's click there together. Okay, you'll notice because we have not added anything yet, our only option is to create a class. So let's press that button. And now we're going to name your class. So if you teach a single grade, then the easiest thing to do is to name it with your grade. So I'm going to say grade 1. Now, if you don't, you could just name it with your teacher name. So you could say Ms. Andrews Students, assuming, of course, that's your name. Okay, so whatever you choose to name it is up to you, just so long as it makes sense for what you're doing. Then we're going to press Add Class Name. All right, so now I have my title added, and you'll notice the class code shows up right here again. So in case you forgot it, it's right there at your fingertips. We're now going to go ahead and add our students in. Let's press Add Students. All right, and now we're going to need to add in each student. Now it does take a little bit of a process to add them one by one, but by the time you're done, you will have all the details you need for them. You'll notice you can also connect parent emails right away. So if you're setting this up and you're planning to use it with your students immediately, and you'd like parent emails to be attached so parents can sign in and see progress themselves, then do go ahead and add those emails in. If not, notice you just have to add in the things with the red asterisks beside them, the red stars. Right? So for each student you're adding, add these top 5 things, and your choice if you do the optional ones in the bottom. I do like to do the math ability level, okay, because it does help. So even though this is a grade 1 class, I can modify it for each student. So perhaps I have a student that's actually working at a grade 2 level, or a student that has a modified program for kindergarten. That way, they won't necessarily notice it, but I'll be able to tailor it and target different lessons for them, and iKnowit will know exactly which level they're at. I can track it in here. It just makes it easier if you have students working on modified programs. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, enter details for each student, press Add Student, and continue adding students until you have all of them in the system, and then press play when you're ready. Okay, so I've added just 4 students, and because mine is grade 1, I don't worry quite so much about their passwords. I just want them to be simple so they can remember them. So for this example, I've given them all 1, 2, 3, 4. But perhaps you modified and your students have all different ones. Just so long as your students know their username and password, then you're good to go. Now we're also going to create one more student, and that's going to be a sample student. So press Add Student, and we're just going to call them Sample Student. That way, when we test out later, you won't be playing with one of your students' accounts, but you'll still get a feel for what it looks like as a student. Okay, so again, I'm going to give them the username, first name, last name, Sample Student, password 1, 2, 3, 4. Completely up to you what you want to actually call your sample student, but just for simplicity's sake, we're making sure we create that account that's unique, that we're not borrowing one of our own students when we test this out. Okay, so grade level, still going to go for that, first grade, and we'll have them working at the same grade level. Okay, so once you're ready, we're going to press Add Student. Okay. Then I can press X out of this one, and there we go. So we have our sample student. You'll notice you can also create another class. So if you do teach multiple grades, or perhaps you teach a split and you want them to be separate, so you have a grade 1 separate from your grade 2s, or however it looks for you, you just need to press Create Class, and you can make a whole new class. Okay, so if you do have multiple classes and you find that would be helpful for how you're organizing, go ahead and pause the video create as many classes as you need to, add the students in them, and press play when you're ready. All right, so you'll notice I did add a second class, and what I love about iKnowit is how simple its organization is. So you just need to go ahead. Well done. You have now set up your class, and you've created usernames and passwords. Everything is all good to go for your students. In our next task, we're going to take a look at how to create assignments for our students. So I look forward to seeing you then. I'm back. Now that we have created our account, we've created classes, and we've added students to each class that we created, we're going to look at how to create and use assignments with students. So to do that, let's scroll up, and we're going to go into the Assignments tab. Now, when you click the Assignments tab, two things happen. The first is you'll get an overview. So if you're ever not sure how to actually assign something to your class or to a student, if you press Overview, so let's click that, it will go through the steps for you to just give you that reminder. But we'll go through them together so that you can actually experience them. The other thing that happens is you could also click Individual Student. When we click that, now we can go into our classes and we're going to actually see which assignments those students have, and we can click within each student. There we are. And look at which lessons, due dates. We have more options for how we actually see what our students have done. All right, so that's how the Assignments tab works. But to actually assign something to our students, we need to start by going into the grade level and finding the concept we want to assign. So please make sure that you select based on your students. I'm going to go ahead into grade 1 since I created a grade 1 class. So I'll click into that. Again, if you're going into a different grade, by all means, you'll still need to follow the same steps. You'll just be choosing a different concept. So my students would benefit from some time practice. So I'm going to come down, and my students will benefit from telling time to the half hour. So I'm going to go ahead, and you'll notice here, because I signed up for a US account, I can also see that it's from the Common Core. It's from the standards right there. Okay, so if I click on that, it will open it up and give me the exact standard that they're working on. So this is really, really handy as well when you're lesson planning and just knowing what your students are focusing on. All right, but if I want my students to actually practice it, then I'm going to need to click this checkbox. Okay, now I'm going to choose the class that is going to practice. So I'm going to come into my grade 1 class. It's then going to open up all of these choices so that you can make sure you're targeting the right amount of questions, the right students, everything that you need as you're assigning. So you can assign to everybody if your whole class. I've picked the students, assigning to which. Back. Now that we have learned how to add assignments to our students by class in the last task. All right, so let's first go to our My Students page. Now, the reason we're going here is it's very important that you remember your class code. So take a moment, write your class code down. Also write down that sample student you created so that you make sure you have that information available. And then hit play when you're ready. All right, now that you have that information recorded, we're going to go ahead and log out of our teacher account so we can log in as that sample student. So let's press log out on the top right. And then we can go ahead and press log in. But now we're logging in as a student, and we need to put in our class code, username, and password. So go ahead and do that, press login when you're ready, and then hit play. Okay, so when you log in as a student, this is what your page will look like. You'll notice any assignments that you've received are right there on the top. And then as you scroll down, oh, there we are, You can also explore different topics. So once your students complete their assignments, any awards that students have. So for my sample student, I had 2 awards. Now, depending on what your student did, you may have 2, you may have more, it just depends. But if we press those awards, there we go. It's going to tell us the lesson, okay, type of award, and then we can view the award or print. So to continue motivating your students, I highly recommend printing the rewards and giving them to them. It is a little more to keep up with, but they of course find it more meaningful if they can, especially if they're primary students, if they can bring that award home and show it off a little bit to mom and dad. The practice it offers your students to continue motivating your students. That it will now show you any awards that students have.